I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Destin City Council, May 17th, 2021 to order. Up first is we have Pastor Steve Ferris to lead us in the invocation. Come on, Pastor Steve.
Lord, we just want to come thanking you for this day, for this great nation that you've given us. Lord, this beautiful day that you've given us. And Lord, we just pray for this meeting tonight that you would guide and direct them in all the things that's coming up. And Lord, as this city grows, and Lord, we need laborers. Everybody's hurting for help. And so Lord, I just pray that people would come that not only to visit, but that want to work and fill some of these positions so the city can function and as the way it would need to. Lord, we just want to give you praise and honor again. We thank you for protecting us and guiding us and watching over us. And I especially want to pray for first responders and their military, Lord, and many in this community that's serving right now. And we just pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Up first, agenda approval. Does any of the council members have any changes to tonight's agenda or additions? Or seeing none?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as is.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. And my little machine's not on, Ray. Let me try it. There we go. It's all right. Voting on the fly, Mr. Braden. You press the button. Ayes have it, so moved. Thank you, Mr. Braden. We didn't even let you sit down. There you go. All right. Up item number one, approval of the minutes of April 5th, 2021 regular city council meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Ayes have it, so moved. All righty then. First up, we have a proclamation. I'll come out here and do that. Mic check. 1, 2. Those of you that seen Joe Dirt would know what that was about. City of Destin proclamation, National Public Works Week, Stronger Together. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and service that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities, and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Destin, Florida, and whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and service could not be provided without the dedicated effort of public work professionals who are managers and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportations, natural environment, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children of Destin to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2021 marks the 61st Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association / Canadian Public Works Association. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Gary Jarvis, Mayor of the City of Destin, Florida, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby designate the week of May 16th through the 22nd of 2021 as National Public Works Week, and urge all citizens to join with us to pay tribute to our public work professionals, managers, employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our nation's health, safety, and quality of life. And these are the unsung heroes of this city. And Michael, I'd like to give you this proclamation, and would you like to say a few words?
Sure would. Thank you, Mayor. I've prepared about 4, 5, 6 pages of remarks. I'm just playing. Now, I just want to say the Department of Public Works strives to efficiently, effectively, and equitably provide a wide array of services to the city of Destin. It is our charge to enhance the quality of life to our citizens, employees, businesses, and visitors in a safe and environmentally responsible manner through the execution of the following: facilities and fleet maintenance, stormwater and pavement management, right-of-way maintenance and beautification, asset management, contract administration, and emergency management. Public Works' 14 employees consistently take pride in their community and demonstrate stewardship of both our natural and cultural resources. Just a sample of projects that we've completed in the last 12 months include the Joe's Bayou Boat Ramp Dock 3 reconstruction, installation of traffic improvement measures at several locations citywide, sidewalk and pavement repairs, sign and pavement marking installation and replacement, storm sewer cleaning, and the rejuvenation of our Adopt a Street program. Staff oversaw several projects this year to include the beach home demolition in support of our public beach initiative, the cleaning of 3 pretty large stormwater treatment units that improve local water quality in the harbor, installation of fire and security improvements to city's facilities, installation of multimodal pedestrian enhancements, road resurfacing, and restriping. After Hurricane Sally, the city's public works staff worked 24 hours a day in an effort to prevent roads, homes, and other structures from flooding. Staff was instrumental in the recovery of the beach at our new Leonard Destin Park by the replacement of almost 350 cubic yards of sand. In addition, staff replaced a small wooden seawall adjacent to the main seawall at Clement Taylor Park that was damaged by the high water and waves from that event. During the COVID-19 pandemic, staff has responded to the needs of our organization to maintain continuity of operations and government throughout this 14-month ordeal, 14 months and counting. Staff ordered and distributed supplies, performed enhanced cleaning services, and made building modifications to provide for improved sanitation and the promotion of social distancing, all consistent with CDC guidance. And then lastly, and I know this is y'all's favorite word, lastly, our department epitomizes, consistent with this year's theme of Stronger Together, an unwavering sense of community and the synergism produced by teamwork, both internally with our other city departments, as well as with our external customers and our brothers in arms. The Department of Public Works is proud to support our strategic partners like the Destin Fire Control District, Destin History and Fishing Museum, Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office, and Destin water users in the execution of their missions and our goal to build a better Destin today and tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
One last thing. I said this at the visioning session, and I'll say it again tonight. I am blessed to have the best department with the city of Destin. I don't question that at all. If any other department head wants to fight, we'll go at it after the meeting. But I'm convicted in that. But I can't do this alone. This is my Deputy Director, James Hart. We can't do it alone. And I would just like to take a moment to recognize our hardworking staff, to include Stanley Basilak, Dennis Dykes, Erica Eliason, Cecil Jackson, Jack Keene, Reese Monson, Brandon Moore, Tony Parks, John Podged, Henry Porto-Real, Miss Lydia Quintana, who is our reigning 2020 Employee of the Year, hooray, and Mathis Wyron. Thank you all for your patience with me as I went through all this, number one. But again, thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council, for recognizing this very important week.
Thank you very much. band, yeah, stand up. It's the only time I'll be taller than these guys. Thank you, Michael. Righty then. Up next, public comments for agenda items that are not on the public, that are not public hearings, and we do have some public hearings today, and any other matters not on the agenda. I just want to remind everyone that you'll have two opportunities to make public comment, this section right now, and then at the very end of the meeting, there'll be another opportunity for you to come up to the microphone and share your thoughts. So at this time, we'll start the public comment portion of it. I'll start over here. I've been going to my left to the right, but I'm going to change it up just so y'all a curveball. So if anybody in the center section here would like to come up, state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes. As if I need to tell this gentleman that. Go ahead.
Kyron Marler, 616 2nd Street, Destin. I have two things to say. One, at your workshop last week, I urge you, as I said before, when I started on council in 2000, I was 42. I'm 64 in August. I'd like to see it done before I turn 84. Please kick the field goal. Don't kick the can for the crosstown connector. Secondly, one of the things I left undone when I was here before, and I've already talked with Mr. Burgess about this, we have a possibility of a serious accident problems that I've seen several near misses at the intersection of 1st Street and 4th Street. That area needs to be realigned. The reason that the road was the way it was because the GNS boats used to launch a lot of boats there. But there's a sight problem at that intersection. People coming off of 4th can't actually see what's coming from 1st from the boat ramp, and there's been several near misses there. So I'd like somebody to just have them look at that, and that's all.
Thank you, Kyron. All right, up next for the middle section.
Greetings, council. My name is Victoria McCraw. This is my husband, Trey, and my two children, Harrison and Kara, 12 and 11. We purchased a home at 345 Gulf Shore Drive on Holiday Island in 2008. Our kids have grown up here. We own a small business serving the area, and we really consider ourselves blessed to raise our kids here in Destin. We are here as a family today to ask the council for help. We can't get answers from the city, so this is our last resort that everyone has told us to do, is come talk to the council. So first off, show of hands, who has kids? Kids? All right, perfect. All right. How many of y'all would want to raise your kids about 15 feet from Crab Island during peak season? Bueller? Crickets? Chirping? Hello? Yeah. Well, really, that's why we're here. The home next door at 355 Gulf Shore Drive originally is a 4-bedroom, 4-bath, 4,500 square foot home built in 2001. It sits on less than 1/5 of an acre. The city of Destin has approved it to be converted to a 10-bedroom, 10-bath resort without changing the footprint whatsoever. Now, I know we can't control short-term rentals, but we do believe that this home is in violation of the following. Number one, over-occupancy. They are currently advertising sleeping 42, sleeps 24 in the bunk room alone. The max occupancy in Holiday Island is 22 for that number of bedrooms. They're also in violation of advertising online and securing bookings while still under construction without short-term rental inspection or awarded certificate. They're also violating stormwater drainage requirements, which are set by the city. No more than 60% of the lot is to be hardscape. That includes the dwelling, driveway, pool. The new driveway exceeds that percentage, therefore cannot support the 10 parking spots required by the city. They also have a new rooftop deck on the 4th story, which exceeds maximum height allowance of that dwelling. Lastly, the immediate and long-term effects of this 10-bedroom, 10-bath, short-term rental, hotel, resort, whatever you want to call it on Holiday Isle, will have a devastating effect on the quality of life for our family and also for the surrounding homeowners in the area. Also, there will be a massive negative environmental impact on the following: over-occupancy violations, constant noise complaints, illegal parking, and increased strain on Holiday Isle security, City of Destin code compliance, and Okaloosa Police Department. I just want to thank you guys. I have flyers that I'm happy for you guys to look at. This actually has pictures of both properties, what we're talking about. There's no hiding from this. This is 3 stories, literally next door. You can't build a wall, you can't build anything. And these 2 right here, 15 feet from literally the party house of Holiday Isle. So I also have the ad that has been placed on multiple websites. So this is for all of y'all. I have a whole stack of them if y'all want to pass them around. Anyways, okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you all.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, please.
You sent an email to the council.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
I forwarded your email to city, the attorneys, and our city manager and said, is this truly going to get approved? And it was in process of a lot of things that had to be looked at.
Yes, ma'am.
So it has not gotten approval. So can you help me understand how they can start advertising and filling slots for vacation weeks at this unapproved hotel?
Councilmember Abear, can I respond to that?
Yes, please, Miss, that's our city land use attorney that is talking right now, ma'am.
Okay, so they can't have an occupancy, well, assuming that the 10 bedrooms were approved, they could not have more than an occupancy of 24 pursuant to our code, because the ordinance says 2 per bedroom plus 4, which with a 10-bedroom house would be 24. The ordinance also has an overall max of 24 anyway. So that would be the max, assuming they had those approvals. As far as the advertisement that I understand was at one point up on one of the short-term rental websites, whether it was Airbnb or VRBO, I don't know, staff has that information, but when staff became aware of the ad, they did require it to be removed. They can't advertise for more occupancy than the 24 once they're approved. They can't advertise for any of it right now. And so my understanding is that the ads are down. And I know that staff regularly does monitor the websites to make sure there are no more illegal ads for any of the rentals in the city. So they can't be advertising at all without being registered as a short-term rental, and then they would be confined to the occupancy of 24, assuming that the 10 bedrooms was approved. As far as the site plan issues that were mentioned, such as open space and paving, height and parking, any of those issues would be thoroughly reviewed by staff. They won't be allowed to violate any city codes. If they're not in compliance with city codes, they would not be issued a certificate of occupancy or a CO. So I don't know where in the process those approvals are, but I do know they would be required to meet code. I can speak to the occupancy requirements. Did I answer all of the questions?
You did, Ms. Kopp. Can I clarify that the homeowner here tonight has found this advertisement today online? Can you step back to the mic and please tell Ms. Kopp what the website is? Because if we have to have you be our Snoop Dogg to help us keep this woman in track or this business, in track, turn the mic back on and let her know what you've got.
Yes, ma'am. I printed this off today from FloridaRentals.com, and this is actually the advertisement as of today, and it is active. They did take it off VRBO, but it is still on 4 other websites as of today.
Okay, well, we appreciate that information.
Yeah,
That's actually good to have. If you can pass that to the city clerk who's sitting, well, it's hard for me to point, but if you can pass that to the city clerk, he will ensure that code compliance staff receives it, and then they can handle that accordingly with the property owner. And there's one other thing I wanted to say to the city council in response to this. To this property and any other property in the city, they're going to be required, regardless of their occupancy, to comply with city codes for traffic, parking, noise. So even if they have 24 in the house, if they're breaching the noise ordinance or leaving trash outside or doing things that otherwise violate the code, they can still be enforced like anybody else in the city on those grounds. So if there are problems occurring and they do get a certificate of occupancy at some point because they comply with city codes, and once they do comply with city codes, the city has to approve them. So if they do comply, there's all of those issues that can also be addressed. Code enforcement efforts later. Hopefully that will not occur.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kopp, for making that
Thank you.
clear for us. All right, next up.
Shane Moody, President CEO of the Destin Chamber. You have before you tonight on your agenda Crosstown Connector fee approval. I encourage you to let's get this passed and get moving forward with this. As I said at the workshop last week, that's the most positive tone about anything in a long time I've heard from the DICE, and that's good. There's a lot of people that are happy about that. So we encourage you to move forward with the Crosstown Connector. Let's get it done sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, anybody from the middle portion of the audience? Seeing none, we'll step on over here to my far left. Anybody over there? Don't bull rush the podium too fast. Seeing how there's nobody running up here, nobody online. How about you, Ray? Any comments, email or text message? All right, seeing then, I'm going to close the public comment portion of the meeting for now. Again, I want to remind everyone, you'll have an opportunity to speak at the podium at the very end of the meeting. So, Lance, your show. Take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Item 4A is regarding the Crosstown Connector. What staff is requesting is council's approval to resume the redesign process, which was temporarily put on hold until we could hold the workshop that we held last week. In conjunction with that, we're also asking permission to engage the property acquisition subcontractor. This is the same subcontractor who acquired the first several properties that we currently own already, so it should be a smooth transition. She's aware of most of the properties we need, with exception to the redesign, and I think it's going to come out pretty close to the same properties in all. So staff is asking for that approval or consideration, and we have Jeff Kozad here to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
All right.
I move the city council approve, oops, sorry, just went away. There it is. Council approve the proposed right-of-way scope and fee addendum from Akins of North America Incorporated and authorize the continuation of the redesign incorporating the multidimensional as discussed as the May 10th workshop session.
I have a motion.
Second.
And I have a second. Does any of the council members have any questions for staff? Go ahead,
do.
Mr. Destin.
Yeah, at the workshop, we discussed a number of changes in the design criteria, one of them being a multimodal pathway. Is that, I don't see that change in here. Do we need a motion to insert that in? Because we could not take action at a workshop.
I would think that would be, Kyle, I'm looking to you for this. Would this be the appropriate time? Or would we want to go ahead and vote on this motion here and then add that as a standalone motion? Give him a second to find out.
Okay, I'm hearing from staff that the multimodal concept is included in this current addendum, but Don, could you speak to that?
The motion? Absolutely. The recommended motion was I move that City Council approve the proposed right-of-way scope and fee addendum from Atkins of North America, Inc., and authorize continuation of the redesign incorporating the multimodal elements discussed at the May 10th workshop session.
Okay, with all due respect, we could not take action at a workshop, so I am going to include the direction to insert a multimodal pathway into the right-of-way as part of this motion, if Ms. Hebert will go along.
So moved.
Second, approve?
And the only other question I had is, we talked about a couple of other things, the concept of, and I would ask the designers to just look at this at the moment, but the concept of trying to slow the speed down on Airport Road, which is an integral part of this crosstown connector, and other methods to slow the traffic down and make it more appropriate for the interior neighborhoods of Destin throughout the direction of the length of the crosstown connector. And if we could include that as part, then I'm satisfied that we're going in the right direction.
Okay, any other comments?
I see the motioner and the seconder are saying yes, so we'll include that
Yeah,
as part of it.
they agreed to include that.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, that's pretty clear direction. Any other comments? If not, seeing none, let's go
I
ahead and
have
vote.
a question, comment.
Okay, well, go ahead. I hit the button, but go ahead. Go ahead.
And having, parks along in there at some point. Is this something that we need to address tonight to ensure that that is being considered along with these plans?
The process for the design will be that we will return with 60%. And at that time, if the components aren't as directed by council, we could make adjustments then at that time.
I think it
Right,
was,
but would a park be a component of the connector itself, or would it be a more peripheral piece?
I think the intent of, during the workshop, Don, is that whole north area would be park-like, the way it's designed with the sidewalk and all that. And we talked about a further establishment of the park on that rectangular piece as well, so it would incorporate the whole thing. And if I understand the process, is that can be incorporated in the 60% plan, and if it's not satisfactory, we can make changes at that point, correct?
Correct. And really, it's just a budget question. In general, I only have so much. So how much we include would strictly be determined by how much of a budget I have to work with,
As far as what's in the park itself.
or the total project as well.
Right, I understand that. I just don't want us to get to 60% and then the feedback is, oh, well, we didn't have enough money to incorporate it into the plans, when that is a key component of what the council wanted.
Can I recommend that we do go ahead and add that to the motion to include at least conceptual ideas of the park or recreational open space for that northern area on there? So
Ms.
that-
Abear, is that okay with you?
Yes, Ray, could you please add what Lance just said to my motion so that we get it all in one swoop?
Is that good for you, Mr. Destin? Because you were going to make a separate motion?
Motions address one, and it's getting a little complicated. I was just going to make a separate motion after this.
I like that idea
Yeah,
better, actually.
We'll do that.
So let's just keep the motion as it stands now. We'll vote on that, and then, Mr. Destin, I'll give you an opportunity at that time to make a motion. We'll have discussion about the park aspect, if that suits council. All right, so I hit the voting button. So on the first motion, we'll go ahead and vote.
Mr. Clerk, are you clear on the motion?
You are voting on the recommended motion right now.
Yep.
That's right, with the multimodal addition, the friendly amendment to that initial motion. Okay. Ayes have it, so moved, and
Ask
now
you,
I'll give you the
quick-
floor, sir.
Let me ask you a quick question. I'm a tiebreaker, but it doesn't seem to record my vote. Am I confused about what's going on up there? Appears that way,
No,
doesn't
his
it?
name's at the top.
Well, Dewey, even if you vote no, you're going to lose, so we'll just go with this
Well,
one.
in case
No, but
there's a
there's
more
no
close vote,
tie.
we need to fix that.
Yeah, we do need to fix that.
But I vote yes for the record.
Okay, for the record, Mr. Destin is voting yes, along with everyone else. So the motion is approved, and I will clear that, and we'll try to fix your tiebreaker status.
Okay, and at this time, Mayor, I'll make a motion that we designate the portion of the old Destin Campground property that is not part of the right-of-way for the Crosstown Connector as a green belt, and we will fill in the details as money becomes available, and we'll work with the staff on that.
But do we want it to be at least conceptual?
At this point, we're just designated as a green belt / park, and then we will figure out what money we have left over to what we can do with it.
Okay, second.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. Is there any further discussion on this particular? I think we discussed it fairly well during the connector, and it seems like everybody's on board here.
I just wanted to add one quick
Go ahead, sir.
thing to that. This will come back to council several times, because if we are able to pull this off with the available funds, we're going to have to change that to a recreational use zone.
Yes, it will come back a lot, and I expect that. We're just starting the groundwork.
Thank you, sir. All right. Seeing no further discussion?
We do a roll call?
Yeah, let's just do that because the tiebreaker man is still up there. All right, Mr. Braden.
Yes.
Dr. Ramswell?
Yes.
Mr. Destin? Yes. Ms. Abear?
Yes.
And Mr. King?
Yes.
Ayes have it, so moved.
The next two items, 4B and 4C, are the new monthly reports being given to you, put before you by Crystal Strickland. Number one is the capital project status report. Number two is the operations financial report. And Ms. Strickland is here to answer any questions you may have on these two reports.
These items are for informational only. Does any of the council members have any questions about item B or item C under 4? Seeing none, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Item 4D is a staff requesting approval of Resolution 21-05, setting the date and the qualification period for the City of Destin special election. And myself and Kyle are both here to answer any questions.
I'll entertain a motion first, and then we'll have discussion second.
I almost got it that time. I'll move Resolution 21-05 be approved.
I have a motion,
Second.
I second.
and I have a couple seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, hold your fingers, all right.
Mayor, can you just do a roll
Okay.
call? Mayor? Can you just do a roll call vote?
All right. So much for technology. Mr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Abear?
Yes.
Mr. Destin? Dr. Ramswell?
Yes.
And Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ayes have it, so moved. Go ahead, sir.
Item 4E is staff requesting approval of a contract with Okaloosa County Supervisor of Elections to conduct the special election for the City of Destin. We have Mr. Bauman here, or myself.
If I could just briefly introduce this item, since this is a bit different from most contracts we would enter into. This contract really has two different types of services that Mr. Lux, as supervisor of Okaloosa County, will be conducting for the city. The first is the base services. The base services are the bare minimum necessary to conduct the election and that a supervisor must conduct. The optional services include 3 potential options that Mr. Lux will conduct for the city if the city so chooses. The first option would be that he would advertise at cost all legal advertisements. I would certainly recommend that the council exercise that option. The second option is that Mr. Lux would deal with the campaign finance and qualification period. And again, I would certainly recommend that the city council exercise that option, as Mr. Lux has plenty of experience in that regard, and city staff does not. The cost of that is $100 per candidate with a $500 minimum. The last option, myself and staff have no recommendation on. It is whether the city wishes to provide for off-site early voting that would probably be conducted at the Destin Community Center. Mr. Lux will provide a week's worth of that service if the city is willing to pay for it. And keep in mind, he has to hire and pay for and staff this offsite early voting. So it will cost between $4,500 and $5,000. If the city wishes to exercise that option, that is also a possibility. The recommended motion is structured a bit differently. You will be approving the contract, the election services agreement, and then electing, we have to affirmatively opt into whatever optional services you want to opt into. So if you want to opt into optional services 1, which is the legal ad, and optional services 2, which is the candidate qualifying and Campaign finance, you need to at least say in the motion that you opt into 1 and 2, and if 3, also 3. Thank you.
All right, I entertain the motion at this time.
I'll make that motion. I move to authorize and direct the mayor to execute the attached election service agreement by and between the city and supervisor of elections and elect the following optional services. 1 and 2, if what I understand.
Yeah.
Johnny?
That's a motion. I need a second.
Second.
All right, I have a second for discussion. Discussion.
So you did not include option 3 for off-site early voting, is that correct?
It'll cost us more money, and it's just,
I just wanted to make sure I heard you correctly. So A and B, I mean, 1 and 2 are included.
Mr. Braden, I thought I saw you in.
Yeah, according to this, this election's gonna cost between $7,500 and $16,000, not to exceed 16. Okay. Thank you.
Does that need to be in the motion form, or that's just a fact of life?
So the supervisor, he's not able to commit to a firm price because his cost can vary depending on, for instance, hiring poll workers and stuff. But his estimated cost, depending on what services are provided, is between $7,500 and $16,000.
They'll just bill us when it's all over.
Yes, Mr. Lux will send a city an invoice and the city will pay it. That's how it always has occurred in the past.
it would also depend on the amount of candidates too, correct?
Yep, it's $100 per candidate with a $500 minimum.
There you go. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Destin.
Mayor, normally I'd be pretty heavily in favor of giving every opportunity to vote, be it early voting or otherwise, but according to the estimates, I think, that our supervisor election gave us, by doing the early voting, we would be paying probably between $50 and $100 for each vote that was cast. That's a little too much money.
And I agree with you and Ms. Abear by leaving option number 3 out because of that. It's just, you know, these type of elections usually have kind of low voter turnout anyways. There's, you know, if somebody wants to vote, they'll make it on election day. I'm with you on that. All right. Seeing no further discussion, let's go ahead and take a roll call vote. Mr. Braden.
Yes.
Dr. Ramswell.
Yes.
Mr. Destin.
Yes.
Ms. Abear.
Yes.
And Mr. King.
Yes.
Ayes have it, so moved.
I have a question, Mr. Baumann. Will they still permit mailing in of votes, mail-ins?
I believe Mr. Lux said that you can mail in ballots. You can even go down to his office and get your ballot and cast it that way. He's just not going to provide off-site early voting, which is where he would open the community center and, you know, train poll workers and have them on site for 5 days. So
Great, I just wanted to clarify.
Since I know that we have a lot of potential candidates in the room, I did just want to make sure that everybody knows that the qualification period is going to start at noon on May 24th and run through noon on May 26th. I know that's a pretty tight turnaround from today, but that was the recommendation of Mr. Lux and what he, in his experience, works the best. So,
Thank you, sir. All right, Lance?
Thanks, sir. Item 4F is regarding the appointment of an interim city council member, and we have Mr. Ray Bailey and Mr. Kyle Baumann here to answer any questions you may have.
Mayor, I'd like to make a suggestion, if I may, to the council.
You can make a motion if you like.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion. I move to appoint Chatham Morgan as interim council member to serve until a new council member is duly elected and sworn in.
I'll second that, Mayor.
I got a motion, I have a second. Any discussion? Go
We
ahead.
do have several folks here that I think would be deserving of at least expressing their interest and qualifications. I think that's only fair.
I agree, Ms. Ramswell, but as a special election casualty, I felt like what happened whenever I was trying to run for a fill-in seat against one other member, I didn't get the same option to get in and interview with y'all. That individual got put on council, and when it came up to vote 4 or 5 months later, people just voted him in because he'd been doing it, and they figured he knew what he was doing, and I didn't even stand a chance, so I had to run a couple more times. what I'm looking at is Chatham's up to speed on the issues. He has a very good foothold, and he's not looking to run in July. So this way, the rest of them will have to work at getting their name out there, knocking on doors, getting that vote, because we've all got their applications. We've read everything about them. I mean, each of them could get up here and probably tell us another 10 minutes worth of information. But at this point, I feel like the best case scenario is let Chatham fill in for the time being, and then let them go after the vote with the citizens and sell themselves.
I see what you're saying, but I mean, we could say the same about Mr. Marler. He doesn't intend to run. You've withdrawn?
Ed Rodney, I saw you.
I mean, I agree. Was going to run one time for a short seat, and then I was running up for council after that, and I mean, I felt like I'd lost already when they appointed the council member, to the seat, and then he ran. He was the interim council member, so it just wasn't fair. And I always thought that, if somebody was going to sit in a short-term seat and was going to run, we needed somebody that wasn't going to run again. So everybody had the same shot at it.
And I think your experience and Ms. Hebert's is the same. Not to disrespect anybody that's in the audience, I read all of your resumes. If all of those people that put their name in for this appointment, this temporary appointment, run, it's going to be a very good race with some of the best quality folks I've seen in a long time interested in sitting on the city council. So I really support what Ms. Hebert's made a motion at here, because like Chatham said, he's not going to run for the seat. And he's already been up here for 8 years, or 4 years, I mean. So it would be like a very smooth transition it's only, less than 60 days. And that allows the folks that want to take that seat focus on running for their duly elected office. So,
Yeah, Mayor, that's exactly right. It's only like 5 meetings, and now the people who are going to run don't essentially have to run what would be an incumbent, and I think that's fair.
okay.
Can I ask real quick? Sorry, excuse me. I'm sure that everybody who's here has put together something to convince us why it would be a good idea for them to sit. Can we still hear from them this evening?
Well, here's how I'm going to approach that. I don't really think it's appropriate for them to campaign before the campaign. Okay, she made a motion to appoint somebody that's willing to sit for 50 or 60 days so that campaign can take place and the citizens can elect. And not everybody on that list is here tonight. So that's not fair either. So, okay, so I'm just going to leave it to a vote. If you want to vote against that, we'll have a new motion, but that's where we're going to be. So, Mr. Braden?
I mean, we can always, if the council wanted to, we could overrule. I mean, I see Mr. King's
You can, but
point.
I'm
I
going to
mean,
go.
they took the time out to apply and show an interest. I would like to hear from them, but I also am on board with Mr. Morgan and the idea of not giving anyone an unfair advantage, so to speak. But I do think I mean, these people took the time.
I'm going to take this to a vote, so if you don't want to appoint Chatham, then vote him down, and then you guys can make another motion.
That's not what I'm saying, but
Okay, because in the interest of time, we're going to press on, okay? So,
that's fine.
Mr. Braden,
Yes.
Dr. Ramswell,
Yes.
Mr. Destin?
Yes.
Ms. Hebert?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Ayes have it, so moved. Chatham will be our interim city council member until all the members here that are going to run their campaign. Good luck. We have some very qualified candidates. Lance?
Thank you, sir. Item 4G, when Mr. Overdyer resigned his post, it created some vacancies on some of the committees where he was serving, either as the primary rep for the city council or the alternate rep. And so it's before you tonight to establish who you would like to fill those vacancies. If you want to go ahead and fulfill them tonight, you certainly can, or if you want to wait, you certainly can.
To speak to that, Lance, I was an alternate on 2 of the committees. I would let the council know that I would be more than willing and able to move into the primary position for those 2 committees.
note, I will make a motion that we nominate Ms. Abear to take the primary position on those two committees.
And what are those committees, just for Ray's benefit?
These
Well,
committees are TPO.
TPO?
and TDC.
Rodney is actually on the TPO as the primary with
So
Skip.
there's two primaries for TPO and an alternate for TPO.
Two primaries for TPO
And-
and one alternate.
What I might suggest, the council can do this however you want, but you might want, there's 4 boards here. You might want to take it one board at a time, one motion. It might be a little less confusing. So, Mr. Destin,
And that the list of the board is,
first one is the Economic Development Council.
right,
It
that's
is
what I'm
in
looking
your
at right now.
packet.
All right, so the first one is the Economic Development Council Policy Board. The primary was Mr. Overdeer, and the alternate was Council Member Dr. Ramswell. Dr. Ramswell, would you like to be the primary on that?
That'll be fine.
Okay, so moved. All right,
And
do I
you
have a
might-
second?
In the same motion, you might want to incorporate who your alternate's going
Sure.
to be. That way, we don't have to do 8 motions, we only do 4.
Okay, and then we have a volunteer over here with Ms. Abear to be the alternate, so,
That sounds wonderful to me. I include that in the motion.
okay, and do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a second. So the motion is for the Economic Development Council. The primary member will be Dr. Ramswell, and the alternate will be Ms. Abear. We'll take a roll call vote. Mr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Abear?
Yes.
Mr. Destin?
Yes.
Dr. Ramswell?
Yes.
And Mr. Braden?
Yes.
Okay, up next is the Okaloosa Walton Transportation Planning Organization, TPO. And that one was, the primary was Mr.
Overdeer and
Mr.
Braden.
Abear, or Mr. Overdeer and Teresa. Teresa's expressed,
It was Overdeer and Braden as primaries.
Well, you can leave it
An
as is, and
alternate.
I'll just slide in, and I'll stay the alternate.
see, my thing says it was Overdeer and Abear on the Okaloosa Walton TPO. Is that an error?
Mr. Mayor, on the primary line, there's 2 names listed.
Ah, gotcha, good. Mr. Braden stepped out, but that's not going to get him out of it. He's still going to be the primary because he's still here. So we need a primary and a alternate.
Does that require a vote if we essentially are just removing Overdeer?
You got to have two.
We do need 2. It's in our
Okay.
best interest because they both
So
have
would
the
you like to
vote.
make a motion, Dr.
Yeah,
Ramswell?
I'll
Go
make a
ahead.
motion, then the primaries are Rodney Braden and Teresa Abear.
Alternate? Well, I need an alternate.
Johnny King?
There we go. Is that good?
Make it so.
You got it.
And hang on just a second, really, I don't know where Mr. Braden went, but
He's going to be out for a few minutes.
is he going to be out for a few minutes?
We don't have a quorum?
No, we have a quorum. It's just that since he's technically at the meeting, under the law, he's supposed to be voting as well. So.
He's going to
this
be
might-
absent for about 20 minutes.
20 minutes? Okay. I guess, Ray, if you can mark him as absent for this time period, that would be appropriate at this time, since he's not technically at the meeting right now.
That's all
It
right.
didn't change his title, though.
That's fine, it's just that there's a voting law for bodies that if you're at a meeting, you have to vote on a matter. You can't just
Okay, well,
avoid it
we're
that
going to
way.
mark him absent. Got it, Ray? All right, let's take the vote. Mr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Abear?
Yes.
Mr. Destin?
Yes.
Dr. Ramswell?
Yes.
Ayes have it, so moved. TDC, Mr. Overdeer was the primary, Ms. Abear was the alternate, so I'll entertain a motion for a new primary and a new alternate.
I'll nominate Teresa Abear as the primary.
And how about an alternate? You made the motion.
And do we,
And Dewey is the alternate.
There you go.
Second.
We got a second. Any further discussion? Start with you, Dr. Ramswell.
Aye. Yes, whatever. Aye.
Aye. Mr. Destin.
I vote yes.
Ms. Abear.
yes.
And Mr. King.
Aye.
Ayes have it, so moved. All right, and then the last one is the Emerald Coast Regional Council, the ECRC. The alternate was Dr. Ramswell, and I'm assuming that she would be more than happy to step up into the primary role on that panel? Yes, she would. So I'll entertain a motion for Dr. Ramswell and whoever you would so like to be the alternative.
Mr. Destin or Mr. King, you want it?
I'll do it.
You're already on every committee. You want to?
I have none, so don't.
I'd be happy if Teresa would like to do that. Be fine with me.
Mr. Des, go ahead.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Ramswell?
Yes.
Mr. Destin? Ms. Abear?
Yes?
Mr. King?
Yes.
Hallelujah. Ayes have it. So moved. Mr. City Manager.
Thanks, sir. Item 4H is an update on the wayfinding for the Harbor District parking lots. I believe it was Councilmember Destin who had asked for this information to come back on a regular basis. We're trying to get this preliminarily in before Memorial Day weekend. So Mr. Burgess, I believe, has got all this information for you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, Mayor and Council. About a month ago at the council meeting, you all asked for an update on the directional signage and wayfinding measures that we were going to be taking to help people find our pay-to-park lots. Staff has already installed about a dozen signs. If you look at the map in the agenda packet, I think James is putting that up on the screen now, and I apologize for the small dots there. But the green dots, there are some bright green dots, and there are some kind of neutral green dots, kind of regular green. Those signs are already in place. We've applied with FDOT's office out of Chipley to install additional signs where you see the yellow dots. We're still working through that process. We're actually in communication with them today. We're just trying to get this, get past the application process to approval. And just as an additional note, we have already preemptively ordered the signs for these placements, so there won't be a delay after the approval, so we can go ahead and get them installed as soon as possible.
Do you have an ETA on the approval process with the FDOT? Michael, any ideas, general speaking?
No, sir, I can't speak it. You know, they're short-staffed just like everyone else is. And they're working diligently as we are trying to get this thing pushed through. But like I said, we've already preemptively ordered the signage, and we have the U-channels that the signs would go on already in stock. So as soon as we get the go-ahead from them, we'll get those things up as quick and fast as we can. We actually applied for a few additional spots for signs, just in case we have a conflict with an existing utility, or there's a sign conflict where you can't see the sign behind it because of our sign and vice versa. So we tried to cast a wide net, and we're going to try to get these things up for y'all as soon as we can. Matt did add in the agenda item a little blurb about the digital wayfinding. Those lots have been uploaded onto the World Wide Web, so folks that are looking for parking are pointed in these directions. And so hopefully we're finding success with that as well.
Council members, do you have any questions for Michael?
I just have one question. Michael, do we have any kind of a new temporary sign going up in the parking lot across from the fishing fleet before Memorial Day?
The Marlar lot.
The Marlar lot.
I'll have to check on that, Councilor Destin, see if we've got what kind of signage we have there now and if we've ordered any additional new signage. I'm not aware of it, but I will check into it for you.
If you would, I appreciate it. And that's going to be the most effective way. I spent Saturday and Sunday directing the cars that were circling our restaurant like Indians around the wagon train over to that parking lot. And because they still don't get it, if need be, let me volunteer funds to buy a temporary banner to hang over there, whatever we need to do to get something for Memorial Day. And I'll check with you for the end of the week to see what we can figure out.
Fantastic.
And I know exactly where Mr. Des is going. We need something bigger, something easier for people to see.
Well, the sign
And lit,
itself is
too.
nice, but it's against the parking instead of at an angle. So when you're coming down the road, you can see it. You got to be in front of it to see that it's a parking lot.
Yeah, we can do something temporary without violating our own ordinance, especially banner-wise. Dr. Ramswell, did you have anything you wanted to ask him?
Yeah, just a question building on this, because we talked about wayfinding signs in terms of landmarks and sites and like Maddie Kelly and things of that nature. Has there been progress on that front?
I can tell you, Lewis is not here tonight, obviously, but he and I have had conversations about that, and that is moving forward currently. That whole program that could, hopefully will involve the numbering or some other signage at all the stoplights that we've discussed for, seems like several years, so.
Fantastic.
Mr. City Manager, if I can add, I just spoke to JT back here. We may be able to take that existing sign just on a temporary basis and relocate it where it may be a little bit more visible, and then we'll go ahead and get a nice big sign. We'll work with our community development department to put that package together.
That would be perfect.
All right, any other comments from council? Go ahead.
The conversation about a banner, Michael, like a canvas banner, like when you're driving through Fort Walton coming this way and they've got landing, art show, it's made up on, can we hang a banner from like a pole to a pole above that for Memorial Day weekend, so as they're coming down 98, they can see literally parking right there?
I have no idea if we can do that, but we can certainly check into it.
Michael, maybe we can ask for forgiveness before we ask for permission.
Mr. Mayor, I don't typically operate that way, but
I did say that on the public record, didn't I?
you sure did.
As long as we keep it on the city property, we'd be asking ourselves to forgive ourselves. That probably will work.
Yeah, because I forgive you. All right, well, we got some ideas. Michael, just get back with us as soon as you can. In fact, if you come up with anything, maybe you can email all the council members in the interim, because that's right around the corner, and we're not going to meet again until after the fact. You guys, y'all good with that? Okay.
If you find a solution, just do it and tell us what you did. Thanks, Michael.
Sir.
Forgiveness versus permission, right?
I'll take the heat. I got broad shoulders and thick skin. Go ahead.
On that note, I think I've got a couple of announcements to make. This Thursday, the League of Cities Dinner is going to be held here in Destin. We encourage all of you that can attend to attend. It's going to be held just up the street here at the Palms of Destin. Dinner's 6:45, social hour begins at 6. On May 31st, otherwise known as Memorial Day, we will hold our annual Memorial Day service in conjunction with the American Legion, and that will take place at the Destin Old Cemetery beginning at 11 a.m. And I don't know if Lisa has anything else on that. Good. Finally, I just wanted to make you aware that staff and myself are dealing with some challenges facing us with the Captain Royal Melvin Heritage Park. We're trying to work through them as diligently and as best we can, but I will keep you all apprised of our situation should I need to get some permission to do some things. So that's all I have, sir.
Thank you very much. I do want to make mention about the Okaloosa County League of Cities dinner Thursday night. Commissioner Mel Ponder will be the guest speaker. So he's always good at what he does. He's fun to listen to. So I encourage everyone to come out Thursday night at the Palms. All right? All right, because of Mr. Braden had to step out for a short period of time and we're fixing to get into our public hearings portion, we're going to take a 5 or 10-minute break, hopefully no more than 10-minute break before we can move forward. We've been moving right along, so we're just going to take I'll just say it, 10-minute break. all our participants back? I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting back to order. What we got up now is item number 5, public hearings. Mr. Bowman.
Thank you, Mayor. First, we have item 5A. This is the second reading of ordinance number 2111 CN, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, authorizing the issuance of the city's non-ad valorem refunding revenue note, Series 2021, in the principal amount of not to exceed $10,600,000 for the purpose of financing the acquisition of certain real property within the city to be used to expand public beach access. Refunding on a current basis the city's outstanding non-ad valorem refunding revenue note, Series 2015A, and refunding on a current basis the outstanding Harbor Community Development Area Phase 1 revenue note, Series 2009, issued by the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Destin, Florida, providing that the note shall be a limited obligation of the city payable from non-ad valorem revenue budgeted, appropriated, and deposited as provided herein, providing for the rights, securities, and remedies for the owner of the note, authorizing certain officials and employees of the city to take all actions required in connection with the sale, issuance, and delivery of such note, making certain covenants and agreements in connection therewith, and providing an effective date, and this is a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. At this particular time, we'll open up for any public comments from the audience on this particular ordinance, 21-11-CN. Seeing no one in the audience, you have
I'll make a
anybody
motion.
on the webinar? No, sir. None? All right, go ahead, Ms. Abear.
I move to approve ordinance 21-11-CN on second reading.
I have a motion.
Second.
Second, is any discussion amongst council members? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take it to a vote. I think we're going to try the electronic version. Ayes have it, so moved. Technology is a wonderful thing when it works. All righty, Mr. Bowman.
Next, we have this is a bit unusual because we have a resolution under public hearings. The reason why we have this resolution under public hearings is because this resolution supplements the ordinance that was just read and approved. Specifically, it tailors Key Banks, who is the lender's proposal, to that ordinance, locking in the interest rate and things of that magnitude. Even though it's not necessary, I'm going to go ahead and read Resolution 2104 by title since it's under the public hearing section, and then we can open it to public hearing. This is Resolution number 21-04, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Destin, Florida, supplementing ordinance number 21-11-CN, enacted on the date hereof, which authorized issuance of the city's non-ad valorem refunding revenue note, Series 2021, the principal amount of not to exceed $10,600,000 for the purpose of financing the acquisition of certain real property within the city to be used to expand public beach access, refunding on a current basis the city's outstanding non-ad valorem revenue note, Series 2015A, and refunding on a current basis the outstanding Harbor Community Redevelopment Area Phase 1 revenue note, Series 2009, issued by the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Destin, Florida, providing for certain details of such note, approving the form and authorizing execution of an interlocal agreement between the city and Destin Community Redevelopment Agency, making certain covenants and agreements in connection therewith, and providing an effective date. The other thing this resolution does is on the city's behalf, it will approve the same interlocal that the CRA did at 5:30. And Chris, if you have anything to add, please feel free.
I have nothing to add, but I'm happy to answer any questions about the resolution.
All right, I'll go ahead. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public comment period. Does anyone have any comments to be made on the approval of Resolution 21-04 supplemental ordinance 2, or supplementing the ordinance 21-11-CN? Seeing no comments from the audience, none from the webinar, none from Ray. I'll close the public comment portion, and I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I move to adopt Resolution 2104 and the interlocal agreement attached to Resolution 2104.
I have a motion.
I'll second that.
Oh, he doesn't have any water over there, so I think we'll give him a pass. All right, so we have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, you're a lucky man. Vote is unanimous, so moved. Mr. Bowman.
Get to hear a little bit more of me. This is the second reading of Ordinance 2112 CN, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Destin, Florida, amending the fiscal year 2021 budget as designated in the attached Exhibit A, describing amendments necessary to accommodate issuance of the non-ad valorem revenue note Series 2021, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for amendment to the 2021 budget, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. And this is a public hearing.
And at this time, I'll open up to any public comment concerning the second reading of ordinance 21-12-CN. Seeing none, any on the webinar?
No, sir.
Not Ray? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make the motion, move to approve ordinance 21-12-CN on second reading.
I'll second that.
And we have a second. Is there any further discussion from any member of the council? Vote is unanimous, so moved. Mr. Bowman.
Thank you, Mayor. Next, we have item 5D. This is the second reading of ordinance number 2103 LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, providing for amendments to Article 7, Section 7.12.08, dimensional requirements, amending Table 7-3, Schedule of Dimensional Requirements in Zoning Districts, providing for consistency with the city's comprehensive plan, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, conflicting provisions, severability, and an effective date. And this is a public hearing.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to make public comment on the second reading of ordinance 21-08-LC? Seeing none, how about webinar?
No, sir.
None? Ray? None? I'll entertain a motion at this time. I have a motion,
Second.
and I have a second. Is there any comments on the second reading of this ordinance? Seeing none? The vote is unanimous, so moved.
Next up, item 5E, ordinance, the second reading of ordinance number 2108 LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, providing for amendments to Article 7 of the Land Development Code, land use type, density, intensity, zoning, and regulatory controls to require multifamily long-term uses to include commercial components in the commercial general CG zoning district, providing for consistency with the comprehensive plan, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, conflicting provisions, severability, and an effective date. And this is a public hearing.
Thank you, sir. And at this time, I will open up any public comments. Is there anyone here that want to make comments on this proposed ordinance, 21-09-LC? Seeing none, is there any on the webinar? Seeing none, there's none there. Ray, zero. I'll close the public comment period on this hearing, and I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
And I have a second. Is there any discussion from the council? Seeing none, we'll take it to a vote. The vote is unanimous, so moved. Item 6, consent
We have
agenda.
one more public hearing.
Oh.
That's on microbreweries. People like this one.
It's not on my list.
It's a first reading. It's on our agenda, right, Lance? Yeah. Okay. We have a first reading of ordinance number 21-09-LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, providing for amendments to Article 7 of the Land Development Code, land use, type, density, intensity, zoning, and regulatory controls, amending Table 7-2, Table of Allowable Uses relating to breweries, microbreweries, brew pubs, distilleries, craft distilleries, and restaurants, providing for consistency with the city's comprehensive plan, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, conflicting provisions, severability, and an effective date.
Thank you, sir. And this is a public hearing, so at this time, I'll take any comments, public comments, based on ordinance 21-09-LC. Any on the webinar? None. Ray, any comments, emails? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment period and entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve proposed ordinance 2109 LC on first reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any comments from the council? Seeing none? Vote is unanimous, so moved. Consent agenda, item number 6. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion? Hello?
Second.
And I have a second. Ayes have it, so moved. Item 7, Councilmember Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. I had one question. I want to go back to the striping on the Main Street. Is that thermoplastic, or is that painting, or is a portion of it thermoplastic, or some of it both?
It's all thermoplastic.
All thermoplastic, okay, thank you. And why did we skip on the boardwalk? Go from AJ's to Royal Melbourne? Why we skip behind Telfins? What happened there?
I thought we took an action on that. I think we took an action to wait until after the 100 days of summer was over, Rodney, didn't we? There was discussion here
It was,
on the
I
dais
believe it
about
was, I believe it was Johnny's idea, wasn't it?
Does anybody on staff know, or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Ms. Firth.
Ms. Hebert brought up to maybe postpone doing tail fins, and we just decided to go ahead and skip over him and keep on going. It was just a request, and we honored it, and now we're just moving on down.
So if that's the way it works, why did it come to council to start with, and council tabled it because they really didn't want to do it?
Well, we did go down there and look to make sure that, you know, we're replacing the boards. You know, their safety is, you know, we believe it's going to be okay. You know, we have to continually change out the boards, replace them, and we just kind of, as long as he was asking, I didn't really see any reason, just go ahead and skip on. We're not gonna, we might not even finish it this fiscal year.
Right.
You know, the
I
boardwalk.
understand, I just didn't know why it came to council for council's approval, and then council didn't approve it, and then staff just made I guess a judgment call on it. Why didn't they just do that to start with, was my question. I don't know, it seemed like council didn't approve it or something, and it sounds like one council member made the recommendation, and staff went with that, so why didn't they, you know, staff just do that to start with if we're just going to bypass the council on it? Anyhow, so we're going to start that after the summer? Is that what the plan is now?
Well, it would be, yes, he was asking for, I guess, November, whatever, but we'll have to make sure we even have the funds available. It'll be in another fiscal year.
I just want to add, Rodney, that we did replace the bad planks on that property, and that was my major concern, where a visitor or resident could actually go through. There were some soft spots, and there's some other soft spots. Staff's goal was to keep this project moving. I don't know that, I do know, I was never approached by the owner of that parcel to hear that request from him. So that's why I didn't honor, I didn't know about it until Ms. Hebert brought it up, and I just wanted to keep the project moving. And I also want to make clear, although this wasn't brought up, but there's two parallel programs going on here at the same time. One is we're replacing board decks that in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, shouldn't be failing yet, but they are, and they're dangerous. And then we need to replace those. The second thing is there's code is reviewing all the sites for potential violations, and they are addressing those with the property owners. They're two separate processes taking place, and both need to happen. So I just wanted to make you aware that that did happen. When staff replaced the planks, they were able to look at the substructure underneath and identify on that parcel that none of it appeared to be causing a danger other than the actual surface planks to the public. So I was just like, well, let's move on and keep this thing moving, because there's definitely some areas to the east of there that need some attention.
So was that the plan all along, to start at one end and replace the boardwalk all along, or just go through there and piecemeal it?
Well, I think ideally, the plan was to start at the west and just move east, but that plan quickly failed because we ended up having to start at the Galati Brothers Yacht Club and then circle back to AJ's, which they're working on right now, and then we were going to get back on track, which would have been, Tailfins would have been the next property to the east. But I mean, as long as we're moving forward with it, I think we're doing the best we can with it.
Okay.
On that, can I ask
yeah,
something
sure.
about that subject? There was mention made of some structures that were beyond where they were allowed to be. Has there been any further information provided on that?
I'm sorry, ma'am, I was talking with one of my officers.
Oh, the question was, in front of Tailfins, I believe there are some structures there that we were trying to determine the permitting and how they were in that location. Has there been additional information provided?
On the boardwalk, you talking?
Yes, down in that area.
They have applied for some permits, yes, ma'am.
Retroactively?
If I can correct y'all, because I brought it to Lewis's attention, and he did find that the development order of 2015, they had authorization for that bar structure that's currently there. They're asking for a permit for the trailer where the singer stands. And that trailer's really not, he's got it licensed and tagged, but it's like an extra right at the edge there. So I think that's the permit he's waiting on now.
Yeah, if I can add to that, the large trailer, which is like the bar, and I think it's the livery trailer, that was originally approved back when he had his development, and that was permitted. And then he just submitted, because he had put an additional little, almost kiosk shed little thing for, I guess he sells T-shirts, which isn't actually on the boardwalk, but it abuts his building. And then he submitted an application also for the stage, like Ms. Hayway was saying, for the little guy, the guy's singing and stuff. So he's getting that taken care of, getting those, he's got those apps in, and it's under staff review right now.
And those are retroactive?
The other two are, yes.
So is he in violation now then, without one? Without a permit for those?
Without permits, I mean, yes, I mean, they should be permitted prior to actually having them there, so right now he's trying to bring it into compliance with that.
Just to clarify, because I wanted to know exactly what it was, he got those approved verbally correct by previous staff, and that's why he's kind of stressed right now, because everything was okay 5 years ago. Now I got to have a permit. So it is retroactive, but he had everything verbally approved, and he tried to get, I guess, paperwork for Lewis for most of it, but some of it he didn't have.
Yeah, the stage trailer, apparently, which I am not aware of, was, according to Johnny, was verbally approved back in the day. But the other little kiosk, T-shirt shed, whatever, he had just placed that, And so that one, and anyway, yeah.
That's a forgiveness mode. Mr.
Forgiveness,
Dasty.
not permission, like you said earlier.
This raises a number of questions, Mayor. First of all, were the other boardwalk property owners given the opportunity to delay their construction till November so that they also would be given the benefit of not interfering with the summer season? I take it the answer to that is no, because I can't find anybody? Staff? Anybody
Correct.
want to answer?
I don't know of any others.
I don't know of any.
Okay, well, absent y'all finding somebody, the answer to that is most likely no. The second problem is, this actually came before the council for a vote. When Ms. Hebert made the motion, it was voted down 4-3, I believe. So you all have now taken an action that was directly against a motion voted on by the council. You know, what do we do, put you in timeout? You know, I'm at a loss what to do with you. A third issue is, we're still looking for some kind of written verification that that stuff can be there. Is that correct? I know the land use attorney, have you seen anything verifying that those uses are lawful on the boardwalk?
Not the ones that were allegedly verbally approved. I haven't seen anything.
Okay, so I can only come to the conclusion it's all right for all the other owners of the property along the harbor to go ahead and fill the boardwalk up with tables and chairs and bars. Would that be a logical conclusion?
Yeah, the logical conclusion is, the actual conclusion is anyone would have been required to get a permit in the past or now. And my opinion is that verbal approvals are not approvals.
Oh, well, it doesn't have to be an opinion. It's in the Land Development Code. Verbal approvals are not approvals. And we can find that section and read it for you if you like. I've read it. So here we face a dilemma. What do we do in a situation such as this?
Well, I think in most cases, if somebody does something that's against our ordinances or non-permitted, then then Mr. Forgione red tags him, writes him a violation, and it goes through that process. Usually, isn't that the way it's done, sir?
Or
That
staff
would
just
be the normal
overrides us and does
process,
what they
yes.
want to do.
But
Mr.
that's
Braden?
not the process it appears we're following. The process we're following is just say, go ahead, in defiance of a motion that the council made. So,
Mr. Braden?
you know, I'm going to discuss this with the city attorney to ask him what the proper course of action is.
Hey, go ahead, Kyle, and then I'll give Mr. Braden an opportunity. He had something to say there, and I missed it. Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, there was action. I think that eventually that was supposed to be brought back to the council. There was another motion made, and then staff was going to gather information, is my recollection of how that was going to go. And then the interim staff did gather the information, and the call was made at that time. You know, I guess council could direct staff to go ahead and replace those boards if it so chooses at this time. There's of course always the gray area about where the line between the council's discretion and management's discretion is. But you know, you control the city manager who controls the staff, so anything you say generally goes. So if you want to override that at this time, I think that you could do that as a council.
I think if we pulled the minutes from that meeting that we made that vote, we also said, let's table it, have them go look at it and see how critical it was, because they needed to know whether they could continue on because of the funding that would end October of this year, October 31st. So we went down there, Lisa basically looked at it and saw there were some damaged boards and got up underneath it and found what was wrong. So instead of bringing it back to council for, let's vote on this, she said, we can keep moving. We've got the boards. We don't have to do any more. This is what's been fixed was what was damaged, so we can move on. So it didn't come to us for an official final vote. We were voting that night, and then staff wanted to re-look at the process of what was going on because they were 2 months, quote, behind where they thought they would be. So I don't want to criticize staff, because I think if we bring up the minutes and we go back and look, that meeting was, let's bring it up next time. It was under my name for the next meeting, and then I pulled it off of that meeting because they said, we have enough work, we can keep going. Theirs isn't as damaged as this section here or this section there. Because we looked, the damage was a lot worse in the piers behind the fishing boats, et cetera. So just trying to save us from beating up staff when they didn't really do what it sounds like we're making it. They looked at it and said, we can keep moving. So I don't think they did anything derogatory.
With all due respect, I disagree with that analysis. We told them to bring the information back to us, and we did not give the other owners along there the option of putting off the disruptive repairs till November, which is perhaps what we should have done, but the funds would have gone away. And so we have not treated anybody with equality under the law, as we like to say, the other owners.
And we got actually two different issues. We have this issue about the boardwalk, and then the other one's about the unpermitted deals. So I want to give Mr. Braden an opportunity to share his thoughts, and then Dr. Ramswell, I have you up next.
I mean, that was the two issues I had, is it was brought to the council wanted to bring it back, and it never came back to council. And in my opinion, if we started the project and was going to change the boardwalk, it looks a whole lot better to start at one end and work through it, not jump around when our citizens are walking down through the boardwalk and the sections looks great. Because I've been down to AJ's. I went down to AJ's when they had it tore all to pieces and looked at it, and I've been back down there again. Once they put it all back together, it looks great. And then, if you walk along there and you got the boardwalk, it's got 2x6s, 2x4s, whatever, it looks horrible. And then you got a section that looks great, and then you got a section that looks horrible. It's just a hodgepodge of a bunch of mess down there. If you're gonna do it, let's do it right. If we can't do it right, then let's don't do it at all. We've had too many years in the past of just botching it together, but anyhow, I'm gonna leave it alone for now. But I do have one other thing.
Can I let Dr. Ramswell weigh in, and then you take up your last item? Go ahead, Dr. Ramswell.
So my question is this: if there is something that is a movable structure or any type of structure for that matter that is in a location and it has not been permitted, if we're coding them, that's fine, but why aren't we asking them to remove it?
I can't tell if anyone else on staff is answering, so I think they're not. If something requires a permit, we tell them either obtain the permit or move it within a certain time frame. And if they don't do it, then code enforcement proceedings can progress. And I'm saying these things generally, not with respect to any particular property, but that's the way it works. If they can't get a permit because it's not allowed in the code, then obviously they simply have to remove it. But there shouldn't ever be a time that we're telling people that a structure that requires a permit is okay without a permit. I'm not aware of staff ever doing that. So.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I can just see a flood of people trying to do similar things and then going, oh, okay, you think I need a permit? I guess I'll do it now, it's already up. I mean, like Mr. Destin has brought up, it can really have a domino effect here.
Well, I will work with staff on any code enforcement issues for any properties. But I just want to stress that any code enforcement issues on any properties in the harbor are completely separate from a decision as to when and where repairs take place. So you all can provide your directive or guidance or whatever it's going to be to staff with respect to that issue, separate from the code enforcement.
Thank you, Kim. Did you have another thing to ask, Dr. Ramswell? You good? Okay, Rodney, you said you had one more item under your name? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Can staff tell me when we pass a resolution to increase the delivery vessels fees from $75 to $100?
2019.
2019, August 5th of 2019. And why did we increase that fees? Where that money going?
That was increased to assist in the offset of the fuel, the compliance officer, the stickers, and the labor into the registration process.
So my understanding was we increased all that to get someone, a harbor master, someone down in the harbor to deal with that. That was their area, their zone, to deal with all the issues we have on the boardwalk. And that was just going to be the area. And it's been, in 3 months, it'll be 2 years that we increase those fees. And to my knowledge, we've done nothing whatsoever. We don't have a harbor master. It's still a free-for-all down on the boardwalk and in the harbor.
You have your harbor compliance officers who's down there been issuing citations and been out in the water, monitoring all the liveries, and been processing all these livery applications coming through.
So all these applications that came in, they're going to be 100% complete, done by the end of the month.
That I cannot promise that.
I mean, it just seems to me that we have just as many issues today as we did almost 2 years ago down there, and we've increased these guys' fees for it, and we've got nothing out of it. They've got nothing out of it. I just don't get it. I mean, in my understanding with, delivery vessels and everything going on down there, staff's over here pointing fingers at each other and passing the buck, and one department don't know what the other department's doing, the left hand don't know what the right hand's doing.
I can pull the numbers for all the liveries, and I can pull what we've been doing out on the harbor and get you guys numbers to show you what he's been doing.
But we don't have that individual that's just dedicated to the harbor, that's just dedicated to that boardwalk, to dealing with all these issues. I mean, where's the harbor person at that's coming to us and telling us what's going on with the boardwalk and what's going on, all the citations and what's going on down through there? And I don't know, it's just frustrating, and it's not you, Joey. It's, in my opinion, it's the city manager. The buck stops with him, not with you. So it's frustrating to me that, these guys are coming up, I don't know. We increase your fees, that much, and for 2 years now. I mean, yeah, you can probably show me some citations that were written down there, but I mean, we all know there's still chaos down there. It's like I told Alan Laird when he was here, it's a free-for-all down there. I mean, I don't know. We're talking tonight. Telfin's got a trailer down there, been sitting on that boardwalk since 15 when he had his development order. It's 6 years. Now all of a sudden he's got to have a permit for it? I'm sorry?
That large trailer is approved. It was approved back in 15.
But I know that little bandstand's been there for at least 5 years.
Right, the bandstand.
And now all of a sudden he's got to have a permit for that. I mean, I don't know. You could just go on. It gets to a point where you just get frustrated. You try and you try and you try, and I don't know. That's all I got, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Dr. Ramswell.
How many livery vessel applications have been submitted and how many have been approved?
Give me 1 second.
Joey can give you the actual numbers, but I think estimated, this is an estimate, there's probably about in the range of 20 that were submitted and probably about 5 that have formal approval. And then the majority received a temporary authorization to continue operating through the end of May because they had submitted everything that staff asked for, but staff hadn't finished reviewed it yet. We have, the city has a consultant that's reviewing parking, and that consultant is taking about 2 weeks per application, as I understand it, and then it comes back to staff to finalize the review. But management and staff are actually meeting tomorrow to prioritize this issue because we know we are mid-month and it's not looking like it's moving fast enough on our end. So we're going to share some ideas to try to get the whole thing complete by May 31st. Because we really don't want to continue doing extensions. We need to know, what's going on as far as what parking was required and what's actually in existence for every property. So hopefully tomorrow we can come up with some solutions, and by the next meeting we have some better resolution. But as of right now, I wouldn't be able to guarantee that everything would be finished by May 31st. But I think that staff needs to prioritize that. So that's what we're going to work on tomorrow.
Did I hear you correctly? 2 weeks for one application to be reviewed?
That's my understanding, that staff provides them with the information and they're taking 2 weeks. So one of the things I was going to suggest when we talk management and staff and I tomorrow was going to be, can we dedicate a staff member to work with the consultant just through the end of May and put other things aside. I'm happy to work with the consultant. I think maybe at this point we need to divide and conquer. Personally, and I think that, when I spoke with management, we all seemed to be on the same page about prioritizing like that. We were just going to work out the logistics tomorrow, but yeah, it's taking about 2 weeks for the consultant. And I think that they're also probably nearing reaching the full amount of the city manager's spending authority. So it may have to come back to council for approval for more money as well.
So if we've got 20 applications coming in and they're taking 2 weeks each, you're looking at 40 weeks, which is just a few months shy of a year to process applications. I'd like to know if this is accurate. What can we do to make this process more efficient? Because that's in my opinion, now I've never obviously processed an application, but there's got to be some way to expedite this.
And I don't think that 2 weeks each means that they can't do more than one in 2 weeks, but when they receive the application from staff, they are allotted 2 weeks to give their comments back to staff. So that's what was initially given to them, as I understand it. And so I think at this point that doesn't work. We have to try to have everything done by May 31st. So I think it's just going to have to be a joint effort and some moving around of staff for the next couple of weeks to get it done. And if it's a council priority, then I would like to hear it from council tonight so that, staff and management know that it's important to dedicate those resources right now.
Well, in my opinion, it's a council priority to be as efficient as a city as possible, and this sure doesn't sound efficient to me.
Can we make a motion, Ms. Preble, and get this as a priority? These livery guys, it's been months. They submitted stuff in November, and it's mostly about parking issues that they don't control, that their landlords control, and we're wasting so much time and money, obviously. I'm with you. That was on my list to talk about. So thank you for starting this.
I don't understand when we're giving these people almost 8 months. 8 months to get their applications in, and they all waited until the last day, and then they turned them in, and now want staff to bust ass and get them turned out. That ain't right. They've had 8 months. 8 months to get their applications in.
I beg to differ. There's 5 companies that are in the process right now that I know for a fact didn't wait. They started. And
I know Charles Duplantis turned his in 7 months ago, but it wasn't complete. And it's not up to him. And he was telling me that he had to have a letter or something that showed every vendor on that piece of property, the building size, the parking, all. That's not up to Charles Duplantis, each vendor to get it. That's the property owner. And if they can't get their property owner to get their information, that's not my problem. That's not this council's problem. It's not the staff's problem. And they just want to, and I can tell you that majority of them know they don't have the parking. I don't know what happened to the engineer that we told staff to go get to help out with the parking and help this process out. I have no idea what's happened to there, but they sit around and they don't submit their applications because they know it ain't gonna get approved because they don't have the parking.
Well, Rodney, I agree with you there because you and I have both been on that harbor our whole lives. I think part of the problem is we directed our code enforcement and our land use attorney to get it right this time. And so probably none of us sitting up here, I'm sure staff members do and Ms. Kopp does, that's a lot of information to have to deal with, whether it's a private contractor or our staff, especially when you're going back on properties that were established in the 90s and the late 80s and trying to find out what their original DOs are. I mean, just think about the things you do in your own business life when you go back trying to find records. So I think it's a case of work overload and lack of time, and then throw in the wrench you just spoke of. And so if this was just a rubber stamp, let's move on like we did last year and year before and that, but this year is different. We required our staff to try to get it right and hold these people accountable for to have the parking they're supposed to have and the level of vessels they've had. And so I think, I may be mistaken, Joey or Kim, you could speak to it. Some of this delay or work overload is just based on the fact that we're trying to start it fresh, new, accurate information that will enable us to enforce this and give the right permits to the right people at the right time from this year on out. Is that a correct assumption of this time delay and what's creating this frustration? Kim, would you like to address that?
Yeah, I mean, as we discussed at the prior meetings, we talked about how this year was going to be very thorough, and that in prior years, not as much attention was paid to every detail as needed to be. And so some things were not appropriately directed to the business owners. And so we need to correct those things. And we had advised them early on that next year we wanted to make the application process more efficient and not put them through these long applications that many of them were complaining about to the city council. So yeah, they want to get it right this year. So yeah, that's what's happening on the staff side, but we still need to correct it at this point, and try to get it done before we're through the summer, because it's not fair to anybody. The property owners and the tenants don't benefit from not having safe and appropriate parking and everything else. So it benefits everybody for us to get it done. And so I think, in the next couple of weeks, we probably, we probably need to make it a priority and put all our efforts into completing the process.
Joey, where are y'all in the process? Are the majority of these nearing completion? Are some not touched at all? I mean, where are you so that we can figure out how to assist you and then figure out how to make this process more efficient?
We have a total of 19 that have come in. There are a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are approved. One of those 6s are approved with the conditions. When they come in through us, the code reviews it for completeness. Did they submit these documents per the code? Then it goes to other departments for review. Then it comes back to us for our other inspections. And then it goes to their, then we go for the approval process. So those other ones are going through their approval process. We have some that right now we're looking at further, about 7 of them that we're looking into. Hopefully we should have them wrapped up with a completeness. We found some deficiencies in their submittals, the last minute ones and things like that.
So there's 13 still somewhere in the process. Have you identified any particular hangups, any one area where y'all are continually getting stuck? I mean,
it goes to the quality of submittal. The quality of submittal, the quality of the review. If they're not submitting where we can't, or the planners and the professionals can review it properly, then it gets kicked back, and it has to be submitted properly where it's legible and drawn to scale. And that's what it seems like. It's falling back on some property owners The deliveries are not wanting to go to the property owners to ask them for the proper information, so that's a hang-up and it's slowing everything down.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really sound like there's one thing that we could do to help at this point. It's more a matter of ensuring everyone has and knows the information they need and they actually obtain that information.
It sounds like that's what Ms. Kopp and staff are going to talk about tomorrow.
Yeah,
To try
yeah.
to smooth that out. Lance, you've had a few rocks thrown your way this afternoon, so would you like to weigh in on what you guys are going to try to do in the next few days with your team?
Absolutely. And you're right, the buck stops with me. I don't dispute that one single bit. But if the buck is going to stop with me, I expect my directors and their supervisors under them to keep me up to date on the information. And I don't feel that that has been happening until maybe perhaps last Friday, I got a full briefing on how the situation currently was really going. And when in fact, every week, I have multiple meetings with individual department heads, and I have individual meetings with leadership underneath the department heads. I depend on them to keep me informed so I can make good decisions. And Ms. Kopp is absolutely right. We plan on getting together tomorrow and working through some strategy. Key player in all this is on vacation, well-deserved. He will be back Thursday, so we will loop him back in on this process as soon as he gets back on Thursday, hopefully. So we can come to a resolution. And in my mind, I know the direction I want to go to get this solved, at least in the short term, and so that our Compass system is up to date and ready to go for 2022. Because that's a sidebar thing that we wanted to make sure that we get the right information into the Compass system so that these folks don't have to go through all this next year. And it's painful. Trust me, I get it. And I think that we can work through it, and I will make a strong suggestion to our current staff that they need to go along with what, in my mind, we have discussed all along for the last 4 to 5 months, and that it's a small company that we have here. It's a small city. We have a small staff. So we all have to pitch in and do things for our brother or sister departments or divisions that sometimes we just don't want to do. But in this case, we're going to do it. And especially since council funded, you guys funded a continuing services contractor to assist with this exact thing. And just to clarify for anybody that doesn't understand, the 2-week time frame, that is that continuing service contract. So that's where those guys are at. They're doing some, but not nearly at the pace that we anticipated. I mean, certainly not the pace I anticipated. So my apologies for not being more on top of this, and I will make that correction. So
What I think at this point we can expect is just when we come back 2 weeks from now, we'll have a clear and concise report where we're at, what you guys come up with to address the shortcomings, if everybody's good with that, and we'll press on to the next item. Other than Mr. Destin, I see you do have something you'd like to add. Go ahead, sir.
I'm going to make a motion as requested by the land use attorney that this council make this library vessel permitting process a priority. Furthermore, that we, unless Mr. Baumann tells me we can't, authorize the city manager to spend twice his usual authorized amount, which I think is 15. So you can go an additional 15 with the consultants to keep moving forward. And so that'll be my motion.
I'll
Okay.
second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Destin and Mayor, just real quick, I would say you certainly can make that motion. Since it's unagendaed, it just requires a supermajority vote.
Hopefully we'll have that, because I think.
Mayor, my comment on that is why, when they submitted their applications and they submitted it in without the information that you asked for them to submit it with, and they haven't got it corrected by the deadline, end of this month, why are you going to give them another 30 days or try to work with them? Because they knowingly and willingly submitted that application incomplete.
Okay, my motion does not address 30 days. It's just simply making.
I'm saying, we gave them 60 days. Staff gave them another 30 days.
That's
After
almost,
that.
that's almost another subject of its own. Let's go. but I'll let you bring that right back up. Let's go ahead and take a vote on this particular motion, and then I'm going to turn right back to you, and you can bring that issue up, okay? So, Johnny, before we go to a vote, you good? All right, let's take this motion second to a vote. This is clear direction to our staff and our land use attorney. Just waiting on the last one. All right, there we go. Ayes have it, so moved. Mr. Braden.
So what are we going to do at the end of the month when the applicants aren't complete? They're still trying to get their stuff together. They've had 8 months to get it together, or 3 months, or 4 months. I mean, you start finding them $500 a day per vessel, they probably find the time to get it done. They go hire somebody to get it done and probably have it to you within 72 hours. But as long as we just keep letting them kick the can down the road, the season's going to be over again. So what is your intentions on giving them more time, or what's going to happen at the end of the 30 days when people had submitted their applications a month ago, incomplete, and you're asking for more information from them?
So I can answer that because nobody that had an incomplete application was given an extension. The only people that were given extensions were those that did not wait until the last minute and that had the information complete. Complete does not mean that the information met code. It just meant that they provided what we asked them for. So at this point, that's why we're meeting tomorrow, management and staff and myself. We are going to do everything we can to get it complete by May 31st so that we're not in that position. So I don't think anyone at this time intends to do extensions. I mean, if we get ourselves in that position, we will come back to council with it. But as of right now, our goal is to finish it by the end of the month. You've just told us that it's your priority. You've just authorized additional spending to the consultant. So I think we're clear on where council wants us to go.
So the applicants that were not submitted on time, a complete application on time, where do they fall in line?
Basically what she's saying is they're going to try to get everybody approved that's filed their application.
I don't think there are any that didn't apply at all on time. There was a handful that waited until the final week because for various reasons. I don't think there were many. It's like 1 or 2. But the 13 that we're talking about were complete. So
Some were incomplete?
No, not that received extensions. There was 5 approved, 13 that got extensions because their applications were complete. And then 1 or 2, I'm not sure, Joey has those numbers, 1 or 2 did not apply until the last minute. And they didn't receive any authorizations for extensions from us. I don't know where those 1 or 2 applications are. Those might still be with code compliance. I'm not sure if they went on to community development yet. I'm sure they are in the process of review by one department or the other. But all of this, we are going to go through in great detail tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, Johnny?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, yeah, Johnny?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I'm with Rodney on that. I mean, I think if you had your permit, you couldn't get your application done because your landowner couldn't provide you with the same stuff. And I know we're beating a dead horse here, but I thought I was going to explode at the last meeting we had because one of the livery vessel owners got up there, it took them 11 months to get approved last year. It took them 2 months to get approved this year, and is still complaining about how long it took. It's so frustrating to me. It's like, what? I don't know the point I'm trying to make, but if you can't get, I bet John Stevens had his stuff done on time. So I think it goes back to a property owner deal. If you're a property owner or you lease that piece of property and you have a prescribed amount of parking and there's no issues with that, I get where you're coming from, Rodney. I'm with you on that. I understand completely. Just wanted to make my piece on that.
problem. Dr. Ramswell, I knew you wanted to say one more thing, and we'll press on after that. We have a
No,
motion.
you're
and a s-
on me. I was going to move on,
Okay.
unless anybody wants to keep
Okay,
going.
so all right.
Okay, so the next item I had was Crab Island and the licensing. Do we have an update on what they decided to do? I know there was some back and forth and not being very certain on how many licenses they were going to approve.
I'm going to ask Webb, he's online with us tonight, and see if he doesn't mind answering that for us.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The last time I recall us talking about that, they were staying the course for this year, and I do not have any additional information. I have not heard any additional information on new licensing that would be required, but I am happy to find that out this week and provide council with that information as soon as possible.
Thanks, I'd appreciate it, especially as we head towards Memorial Day weekend and just making sure everyone's on top of that. The next question I had was the status of those derelict vessels. I believe y'all had looked into the 4 I mentioned, and one was considered not derelict, I think the Bird Boat, but the others y'all were looking into. Is there an update on that?
Yes, ma'am. Those have been reported through FWC, and they have the lead on that.
What's their turnaround time typically? Dare I ask?
Yeah, that I cannot answer. I can't try and, I did reach out to FWC. I haven't received a call back from the one in this area.
Joey, was it 60 days last summer when they had the sailboat? They had to do like a notification, put it in the paper, and it had to be a 60-day from the date of dereliction of duty discussed and locked in.
Right, that's why I would be anxious for them to start the process.
Yeah, I think it took us 3 months to get that sailboat out of the parking lot after Hurricane Opal at the fishing fleet.
There is a.
And yeah, the problem is the Jones Act and interagency overlaps, and so it's a long process. You know,
Yep,
you just
I
can't call
remember from
somebody up
before.
and get them to move the boat in 2 weeks. It usually takes months.
Yeah. So if you could just stay on them and let us know an update as soon as you have it.
Yes,
That'd
ma'am.
be
Yes,
great.
ma'am. I'll get that, and I'll make sure you guys get the link to FWC where you can actually search to see which derelict vessels are under investigation by FWC. I'll have that sent to you.
Well, before you move on, Ms. Ramswell, what was the Bird Boat? Why is that okay? Because that's that Pelican overloaded boat.
I
Looks
guess it's
terrible.
not considered derelict because it has certain equipment and elements on it. Joey, do you want to elaborate?
If I can confer to the sheriff's office behind me, if he can answer that.
Defines. It's defined in Florida state statutes what a derelict vessel is. I can't verbatim right now recite it, but it's got to meet those qualifications.
And this one drops wrecks, so therefore it's used for a purpose, so it can.
Well, if it's registered, it's not derelict. I don't know if that one's registered off the top of my head, but
It is, and I know the owners of the boat, and they use it multiple times a year to make wrecks to provide for their business.
So as opposed to being derelict, it's parked, I guess is the way to look at it. Moored.
Moored.
Yes. Okay.
And the Pelicans like it.
Yes, obviously. Okay, next question. Landscaping, pruning, the right-of-way mowing along commons. Mr. Burgess, what follow-up were you able to gain from the county, and what's the status on that?
I spoke to the county after you and I spoken about that, and asked for their assistance in getting that area mown prior to the blessing of the marketplace. They were unable to help us out with that, and I believe Mr. Warren also made a few phone calls to that effect. So what wound up happening is Lisa Firth's team and my team collaborated together and did the best we could in the short time that we had, so we'd have a suitable front door to the Destin High School for the Week of Blessings.
Thank you, and that was very much appreciated. In fact, we had a citizen come to that event and actually volunteer his services to trim the trees that are growing in the right-of-way. Thank you for that. Moving forward, is there anything you want to fill us in on or ask us about in terms of what we can do going forward? Because Commons is a mess. Shopping carts, trees, you know.
And this is Webb, if I may. I have been in contact with the county on this, and we talked at great lengths last week, and I don't have a resolution to provide to council at this point, but I am happy to continue to pursue that and provide a report back to council, because it is a priority and it has been a mess along there. And we need to figure out a solution moving forward for sure.
Thank you. And if I could request, please, that for the next council meeting, you, that is an agenda item, and you or whomever on staff bring back some report on this and some options going forward.
Yes, we'll be happy to do so.
Thank you. The last item I have is, Mr. City Manager, you had mentioned earlier there were some issues with Melvin Park. Can you elaborate on what's going on, and is this anything that we could assist with? Seeing attorney, I won't say interference, but attorney interjection.
Just a little advice, is how I like to phrase it anyway.
Sure. I'm not overly pleased with the pace that this project is moving. I feel fortunate that Mr. Buckingham is helping us out and bird dogging this for us. I believe he's made several observations that in my mind have, to the best of my knowledge, all proven to be true observations. We've been extremely patient with both the general contractor and the subcontractor that he had hired to complete most of the site work. And we've got some key components that have to take place in a very short order, or to be just flat, blunt, honest, the project is going to get shut down until after Labor Day. And one of those components, and the major component involved, is a 12-inch water main that feeds the western end of Holiday Isle. And we have got to see some movement on that, or I believe I'm going to be forced to make some decisions that I don't really want to make, but in the best interest of this project, prepared to make them.
So here's my question. That line, we know, was recently inspected by DWU. They took divers out and they looked at the line. Does it have anything to do with that, or does that help or hinder anything regarding this?
No, that part doesn't have anything to do with our project. We've got to actually lower that line on our property and tie it back into the line that you're speaking of that goes out to Holiday Isle under the water.
And was this not something that was identified during the preliminary stages of planning? And
it was absolutely identified. And according to the notes and/or minutes that I have been given by our staff, it clearly indicates that was discussed early on in the pre-construction stages of this, that this is, if my memory serves, and I don't have it right in front of me, but if my memory serves, it pretty much says this needs to be done before anything else gets done, and it's not done, so.
okay, so that's the bottom line. It needed to be done. We knew it needed to be done, but it hasn't been done for some reason, which shall remain quiet, I'm assuming, Mr. Bell?
There are, to protect the city's interests, particular procedures we have to follow to ensure we maintain our federal funding for the project. And we are making sure we follow those procedures to a T and not risk the almost $1.3 million in federal funding. we think we have a plan that will avoid any issues on this particular matter. Now, I mean, there has been ongoing issues that has required the involvement of Kim and myself, that we are monitoring the situation. And again, just city staff and Mr. Buckingham are checking with us almost daily at this point, just to make sure we proceed through the proper channels, just in case the contractor's unable to finish the work.
So if I infer what you're saying, there's really nothing we can do right now to assist in the matter. We're all in sort of a standby?
Yes, there's just, with so much money at stake, particularly not our own, there's just, and the issues that have come up, there's really nothing that the council can do at this time to help us, unfortunately. We are trying our best to particularly ensure that this water line issue gets taken care of before Memorial Day, because as Lance said, that doesn't get taken care of, the project can't proceed forward. That is critical site work that needs to be done. That is fundamental to the contract, I would say.
I mean, I'm chuckling because it's like, I can't imagine anything else. Well, God, Lord, I don't want to say that, but everything in the world seems to be happening. I mean, I'm frustrated, and I see Mr. Bagby's here, Mr. Destin. They've been involved with this thing now for more than a decade, and here we are, here's an essential element, and we've got a problem. So I don't know how in 11 years this dang project, we continue to have problems. It's almost cursed, and I hate to say that, but it's been one thing after another. All right, well, I hate to end on that note. I guess I will end on something fantastic. Last week, obviously, was Week of Blessings. The high school was blessed. The fleet was blessed. Marketplace took place at the high school. Wonderful, wonderful event, as always. So thanks, really, for everybody's part in that. The high school was the beneficiary of the donations last week. We haven't gotten an amount yet, but we were just so grateful to be involved in any capacity. So thank everyone for their involvement in that event. As always, it was wonderful.
Mr. Destin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to hit a high note here. The speed table / speed bump on Calhoun that the staff installed has been quite effective. It's slowing people down coming from the north. Regularly go get my bag of popcorn and sit there and watch. It's quite entertaining. We've got the stripes on it I see today, and it has really worked. Now, my only question is, I thought we were going to put one on either side of the park. The people coming from 98 are not slowing down until they hit that and they're past the park. So we'll have to look at that a little closely, but congratulations, guys, you built a really good speed bump. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Aber?
Fortunately, Mayor, both Mr. Destin covered one issue and Ms. Preble covered the other three, so I have
Hallelujah.
nothing else.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Thank you, sir. Just one thing. Well, I thought it was really cool, Dr. Ramswell, you so flippantly referred to just the high school. I mean, it's so cool that we can talk about that we have a high school now. It just is really, it's neat to me. Just one quick thing, Michael Burgess, you're gonna hate me for this. We were talking about the pump earlier, the harbor pump, and I was thinking, I don't know if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would. We've had some issues on and off. Does it run? Does it not run? It doesn't seem like to me that it's a great priority. I mean, we got the golden goose of the county, in my opinion, not to offend anybody in other parts of the county, but the harbor, I mean, that's our golden goose. When we have beaches, we got great things. The harbor is where I venture to guess that the majority of our locals spend more time at the harbor than they do, anywhere else as far as leisure goes. And it may be completely out of the question. It may be way too much money. But a charter boat or private boat, they've got a spare set of wheels. They got a spare set of propellers. If you bend one and you need a spare, you pop them on and you go fishing the next day. Is there a possibility to one day have a spare pump? I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit today, but
Sure, I can elaborate on what we spoke about today is, and I think I brought this up before council, but we only have one harbor pump, and when we have problems with it, we don't have a redundant or resilient system to keep it doing what it is charged with doing. I mentioned to Mr. King today about the inflow from the Gulf that happens every day during high tide and the estimate of the flow that comes into the harbor area. We, just kind of a little background, and this was in the weekly report that you all received. We had a problem with the universal joint and the drive shaft. A pin sheared on the universal joint. So we had a new universal joint drive shaft assembly put together. And while we were doing that, we had taken the motor and we took it over to this shop that we use a lot over in Fort Walton to just kind of get a tune-up, the once over, while we were waiting on the drive shaft and universal joint. Drive shaft comes in, everything's reassembled. We hook everything back up, turn it on. It's running for 5 hours perfectly, just like a sewing machine. Then at some point, at about the 5 hour mark, there's a camera that we have focused on the shaft, the pump shaft itself, and a little pressure gauge. And the camera feed dropped. And at the same time, the pump cut off. Not sure what happened there. But went back over there, reset everything, tried to turn it on. It's not behaving itself, so we wound up pulling it. Took it back to the shop, and it had a phase-to-phase short. It's a 3-phase pump, so it had a phase-to-phase short. Just, it happens in motors, electric motors like that. So we're having that repaired, and then I've already talked to my staff about getting with a local vendor. We're going to go ahead and pull that pump up out of the wet well, and we're going to probably take it and lay it down on a low boy. We're going to look up inside that thing because there may be another issue. In worst case scenario, we can take it to a service center and have the pump worked on. I apologize for all these. It's kind of out of my control at this point, but all these, it's just like a series of unfortunate events that have been going on with that pump over the last 2 or 3 weeks. But we thought we had it, and evidently we didn't, or we did, and another problem arose. But just to throw my 2 cents in, it is a priority for us. I mean, the harbor is the jewel in the crown of Destin. And so we're doing everything we can as fast as we can. But it's tough sometimes when you just can't really, it takes an extraordinary amount of effort to pull that pump completely up out of the wet well and do a thorough examination on it. And as I talked to you earlier, we were just trying to, if nothing was wrong with the pump and it was the motor, we were just going to fix the motor, let the thing work. Let the process work, let the system work. But apparently that motor, I'm not sure how old it is, but it did, again, have a kind of a critical failure with that phase-to-phase short. We're getting it fixed. We really are. So as soon as we can get that thing back up and running, we will get it back up and running.
Yeah, and I wasn't throwing darts at you. I've spent probably as much or more time combing the edge of that harbor at night with lights in the water, and when that pump's not running, there's a distinct line where when you pull in there, there's a awful film on top. When that pump's running, it's like, wow,
Mr. King, can I add on or ask a question building on this? So I was speaking with someone a few weeks ago, and they mentioned to me that pump that is in there is actually not the right size or type for submersion in salt water, and that has been part of the recurring problems that we've had over time. Is that accurate?
Well, I can't speak intelligently about someone's opinion, but the original pump that was there was a hydraulic pump. That was subsequently replaced with the direct drive pump that we have now. We do dive on it periodically, and pretty much the only maintenance that's required is we have to tighten up some of the bolts in the housing because they do work themselves loose like any vibrating motor would do. We do an annual cleaning of the intake screen out in the Gulf, And other than that, there aren't that many moving parts in it, a couple of bearing systems and the shaft itself. But we're gonna have that thing taken out in a kind of a forensic analysis initially by our staff, and then, if need be, by people with more expertise in that field.
I mean, I know since I've sat up here, and Mr. Braden can probably remember as well, that pump seems to have been out of order more than it's been in order and functioning properly. I mean, am I wrong?
I'm not sure that the ratio is correct, but I attribute that pump to several of the gray hairs on my head. It is a problematic system that is, we actually, through the years, in the off-season, they just kind of let it sit stagnant. And then, since I've been in this position, we've actually run it a few hours a week in the off-season, just to kind of keep it loose, keep it working periodically. And it did great all winter long until we hit maybe around March. And then we started having some hiccups here and there, but we're committed to getting it right, and hopefully it'll serve us well for years to come.
Great, and I don't want to hijack your thing, Mr. King. I have one more question. A few weeks ago, when we talked about water quality in the harbor, I had mentioned some of the prior testing included certain chemicals and elements that are no longer being tested, and I had asked for someone at some point to bring back a report and a comparison on old versus new and the differences. Any idea when that will come back?
I'm actually pulling them from the old files that we have on file. I did get with Dave, who used to do the testing when it first started. There was no metals ever tested back then because of the cost. But I will see everything was set by DEP when the pump went in there, and they had the parameters set what we need to test for.
Perfect. As long as you really make sure you cover that period around when they had to issue the moratorium because of the levels of whatever it was.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
We have
you.
a baseline.
Thank you.
Back to Mr. King.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Land, let's see who's up next. Thank goodness Mr. Schmidt's not here. I have nothing. Land use attorney.
Nothing, thank you.
Nothing for me.
Up last then is time for public comment. Is anybody that wants to come from the audience and make their final say? Come on up. Name, address, and 3 minutes.
All right. My name is Bobby Wagner. I live at 422 Anderson Drive. Out of the 3 hours, I really appreciate Mr. Destin and Dr. Ramswell for the 60%, the park. I'm coming and talking to you guys as the director of Trees on the Coast. We are a nonprofit 501c, and seeing councilmen up here and really trying to make sure that parks stay on a forefront was awesome. So I appreciate it, and that was worth sitting through this whole meeting just to hear that people are caring for it. I got a couple of things going through Parks and Rec right now, so I hope to see you guys next council meeting with some approved park and recreation things that I have planned for you guys, and I'll come with photos and some fun stuff. But I got a lot of good stuff to hopefully get some residents of Destin working alongside the city manager and the staff here, because I don't want to give them any more work. So I'm here to provide some assistance, and as a nonprofit, we would love to donate for the Crosstown Connector Park any way we can. So I thank you guys. I appreciate everyone up here.
We're going to take you up on that too, sir. All right. Any comments on the webinar?
No, sir.
Any other folks here in the room? Seeing none, this meeting's adjourned.